What's up, everybody? Welcome back to SplatterCon. I mean, the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. What do you guys think of that new intro? That thing is super sick. I love it so much. I must have watched it over 100 times now. It's so visually eye-catching, and the music is just so good. I love our new intro song so much. But anyways, we, of course, are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe. And today we are talking about my personal favorite Dresden Files book, Proven Guilty by Jim Butcher. I am so excited to get into this discussion. This is going to be a fantastic episode. As always, this Dresden Files series that we do is a read-along type setup. So if you've just read Proven Guilty, then there's no need to worry about any spoilers for future books, because we won't spoil anything beyond Proven Guilty, but we will spoil everything up to this point. So if you haven't read up to Proven Guilty, you know, this may not be a great discussion for you. But we'll give you a spoiler warning in a little bit, though. For now, just hang out with us while we chat about a few spoiler-free things that you might find interesting, even if you haven't read the book. We've gotten a bunch of subscribers in the past month or so. So I uploaded a brand new channel trailer that gives new visitors a great rundown of everything we do here at the Fantasy Files podcast. What all our different types of videos are, what kind of content you can expect from us. And it just kind of opens up the door for you to get to know us a little bit better. I'll link it up above and also in the description below. And actually, it's great for anyone who watches our stuff, whether you're brand new here or have been with us from the beginning. It's just a great way to kind of familiarize yourself with all of our different content. You know, if you usually watch the podcast episodes and don't really know what our other content is, it's a great way for you to see what all that other stuff is. And speaking of new viewers, if you're not subscribed and you are enjoying our content, we humbly ask that you hit that subscribe button down below. It helps us to know that we're bringing more people into the channel, which in turn is going to make us up our content for you guys. So it's just a good way to gauge kind of how we're doing, and it really helps in general with the analytics. You can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy to be privy to my demented tweets that I send at midnight. that I make on our podcast account. It's always kind of a mixed bag of whatever I'm going to post over there. It's usually pretty fun. Yeah, we other than that, we have a little bit of housekeeping and announcement type stuff coming up here. We have a lot of really cool stuff coming up in the next month or two. And some of those things are, so we got news from Holly Tinsley. You guys probably remember our videos on We Men of Ash and Shadow. We did a spoiler-free review. We did an author interview with Holly herself. We did an interview with RJ Bailey, the audiobook narrator. And so that was like a big book for us last year. And we actually got to be like really close with Holly and RJ. We consider them friends. And she has decided to put my dog Hank in her next book. And so she sent us a little snippet with what Hank's part is going to be in the book. And I'm so excited about it. But other than that, she also mentioned that we will be getting advanced review copies for her next book, which is The Hand That Casts the Bone. I don't know when we'll be able to do a review on it, or like when, like, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know when we're allowed to do it, because there's kind of an NDA thing here, because we're like well before it's going to be released. So we can't actually talk about it on the podcast for a while. But it is very exciting, and we're really looking forward to this book. Super, super excited for that. RJ Bailey also just tweeted out that he received his first manuscript of The Hand That Cast the Bone, and he is now working on the audiobook. So it may be here sooner than we thought. I think we were a little worried that we weren't going to get the audiobook very soon, but I think I doubt they'll come out at the same time, but I think that the audiobook will be out shortly after. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So then the next kind of announcement, it doesn't really involve our channel that much, other than the fact that it's just something we're super interested in. We got release dates for the next two King's Dark Tidings books by Kel Cade. She put out this tweet listing all of her release dates here, if I can pull it up. So A Mage of No Renown, which is Wesson's origin story, the prequel book, that is coming out on June 21st. And it says in the description here, it's kind of about Wesson learning to contain his powers, because at that point in his life, he struggles a lot with this huge amount of power he has. And so that's the prequel book for that. And then we got a title for the 5th King's Dark Tidings book. It's called Dragons and Demons.
Ooh.
And that comes out September 6th. And I just want to read this description here real quick, because I don't know if you read this description, Gabe, but it's really, really cool. So Tam is entrenched in an inescapable slave encampment, a place where captured men are given up for dead. He is confident his friend and king will come for him, but will Rezkin arrive with help before the hole in Tam's mind drives him to madness? When the earth starts speaking to him, Tam's certain it's already too late. Rezkin struggles to overcome the poison that pervades his system, and the enemy presses the advantage. Confronted by a force he may not be able to defeat, Rezkin is stolen from his intended path and driven toward shocking answers. With every whisper of knowledge comes new questions and one certainty. Rezkin's past has finally caught up with him, and the Mad King Cadian is part of a darker game than anyone realized. Let's fucking go, dude. Let's fucking go. You know what I'm saying?
That's badass, dude. I'm so excited.
Oh my God. Does that not sound like the best book of the year?
Dude, yeah. And yeah, it does. Because the ending was so, like, the way that she ended, right?
Such a cliffhanger.
Yes, exactly. Huge cliffhanger. Massive. And so I've been excited to figure that shit out for a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, since 2 years since I read it the first time.
Oh my God, dude. I am so excited for this book. It sounds like there's going to be this huge like time crunch for Rezkin to get to Tam, but all these things are going to get in his way, and Tam is just getting worse and worse and worse. Oh my God, dude. I am so excited. And that title, Dragons and Demons.
Yeah.
Are we going to see a dragon
I don't
in
know.
King's Dark Tidings?
Wouldn't surprise me though, honestly. It wouldn't. It'd be freaking nuts.
Man, I am so over the moon excited for that. So we still haven't heard back from Kel Cade as far as doing an interview, but she's probably really busy right now with kind of getting the book wrapped up, getting ready to be published. So, hopefully we'll hear from her, maybe a month or so before Wesson's story is released. Or even if we could get her on the show for book 5, that would be awesome. But everybody, if you're a King's Dark Tidings fan, tag her and send her messages and tell her to come on the Fantasy Files podcast. Like, everybody just message Kel Cade and be like, yo, you got to get on the Fantasy Files podcast. Oh, and then hardcover editions, signed hardcover editions are coming out soon. I'm not sure exactly when, but we got to see a picture of them on Twitter. and they look phenomenal. And I'm going to buy every single one of them. It's probably going to be like $200 something to buy all of them, but I am going to buy all of the hardcovers.
Yep.
Day one, get like the first edition signed, like everything. It's going to be sweet. So then also in other news, we'll be putting out a video shortly after this one, where we will have a full series discussion with Jim from the Fantasy for the Ages podcast. He was a friend of ours that was on a Wheel of Time video I did a few weeks ago. And he just finished Dresden Files for the very first time. So we're super eager to hear his thoughts on the series. Just because like he just read it for the first time. So it'd be super awesome for us to like, oh, what did you think of this? And like, what were your theories and like what panned out and what didn't? And like, what were your thoughts as you were going through the series for the first time? Because that always gives me a ton of joy when somebody is going through Dresden Files for the first time and they're like, oh my God, I didn't see this coming, or this was awesome. And so I can't wait to pick his brain on that. He's a super cool guy. He was really awesome in our Wheel of Time video. So definitely come hang out with us for that. And I should clarify, it's not part of this read along. So it's going to be like a separate thing where we do full spoilers for the whole series. So if you've only read up to Proven Guilty, then you probably don't want to tune in for that. But if you've read all of the Dresden Files, then definitely come hang out. It's going to be spoiler filled. It's just going to be an awesome conversation. Okay, so then lastly, it's a little bit more delayed than we thought it was going to be. We are going to be recording our Night Angel. We're going to start our Night Angel trilogy series on the 13th. We're going to record it on the 13th, and then it'll probably go up for you guys on the 20th, which is also my birthday, just saying.
Happy birthday.
And yeah, so that's going to be a ton of fun. So we're going to have 2 guests on for the first episode of Night Angel. I'm not sure if they're going to stick it out for the whole trilogy, but they're definitely going to be there on day 1 for that first book. And that is Julian from Between the Lines. I guess I'll link his YouTube channel down below so you can check him out. But also the girls from Fiction Fans podcast, which is a very they've been really great friends of ours on Twitter, and it's always a really good time to talk to them. So yeah, there'll be like 5 of us on this first episode. It'll be really awesome to talk about. I mean, that's like one of our favorite fantasy series. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right. Do we want to talk a little bit about what we've read lately? So you obviously read Proven Guilty.
Yep.
What else have you been reading lately? Anything?
Not really, man. Yeah, not really. I think I've got like this, not really a fear, I should say. At least money's been pretty tight. So I'm like my go-to now is just to like reread a book that I haven't read in a long time.
Sure.
Or whatever, like that's still in my library. And like, of course, for instance, and we're going to talk about this like probably now.
Yeah.
It was a free book, Impact Winter. And so it was like 4 on 1.5 times or 1.3 times speed is what I read. It was like 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And dude, oh my God. It was such a good book, but I was like so thoroughly disappointed that it stopped.
Oh yeah.
I was like, dude, it's not enough. Like the potential for that book to be like an insane series is like massive. I don't know how it's not.
Yeah. So we're talking about Impact Winter by Travis. I think his last name is Beecham.
It sounds
and
right,
this is an Audible original. So if you have an Audible subscription, it's completely free. You can just go and listen to it right now. Like Gabe said, it's like 4 hours and change if you're listening on regular speed, but if you're listening a little faster, it's 3 hours something. But this is a fantastic book. I started this last night, I think at like midnight. I just saw this on Audible and I was like, oh, what's this thing? And I had just finished Proven Guilty like a few hours before that. And I was like, you know what? This thing is only like 4 hours long. So I'm just gonna check it out, and if it sucks, then at least it's free. And dude, once I got started, I texted the group chat, the podcast group chat, and I was like, you guys need to read this. And then I was so happy today when Gabe texted back to the group chat. He's like, dude, I'm like 2 hours into this book and it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I was so happy because I was listening to it all day today. And it's just like a really great book. It's really like concise and to the point. And, it tells like a really good story in 4 hours, which I think is such an achievement for somebody to do. And basically we haven't even talked about what this book's about.
Yeah. We're just over here gushing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a post-apocalyptic story. And imagine like your post-apocalyptic zombie story, but instead of zombies, it's vampires.
Yeah.
And the characters are so like well realized. And I know some people hear like, oh, it's a vampire book, and they kind of write it off. I'm not kidding you. This is like probably the best vampire book I've ever read.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the vampires are like legitimately scary. And then some of them like have like a human side to them. And so you're always kind of trying to figure out like who's a good vampire, who's a bad vampire. Yep. And I should also say that the whole thing is voice acted by like at least 10 actors.
There was like more.
Several. Yeah. There was like several people doing voices, and there's sound effects. Like if they're walking through snow or whatever, you hear the snow crunch. Anytime like, somebody swings a sword or something, you hear the battle and whatnot. And so all the sound effects were really cool, but not only that, it was, there's like licensed music in it. Yeah. Like there's like music that I like recognized from, Spotify and stuff like that. And so it was really cool to see like real music being played in this book in between each chapter. A chapter would end and it would just play like some epic song, and it's like, yes, let's go. Like I'm ready to keep reading. And God, this book was just phenomenal.
I was to say, I want to say something about it.
Yeah,
I think that, so I've like listened to audiobooks that were like, the movie in your mind type thing or whatever before.
Right.
They were, the same premise, same idea, but it was like just the way that basically the director sucked in those ones. Like,
sure.
I have to attribute it to the director, because like the way that they set it up and they stage all the sounds and the voices, like when they walk off, they get quieter, and you can tell that they're in the other room, because it sounds like they're shouting from another room. It was just super well put together, like better than any other one that I've ever tried reading.
Oh yeah, like the sound design was incredible. Yeah. And saying that makes me think of, there's no so it's not like a normal book. It's literally like you're listening to a play, or like if you guys remember the old like radio plays that they used to have on like old-fashioned radio, where they would have like a play broadcast. So that's pretty much what this is. There's no real description of like their surroundings. Like it doesn't describe the room that they're in, and it doesn't say like, oh, this person said, or this person said. Like you're just listening to these people act it out. But and you would think that would be super confusing and that you wouldn't know what's going on because it's not like describing anything. But that is absolutely not the case. Like the whole time, like I pretty much knew exactly what was going on. If there was a fight going on, the sound design was so good that it made it very obvious there's this big battle going on. And you can kind of tell like who's winning and who's losing by, shouting that's happening or some dialogue in the middle of the fight. And it's just really, really good, you guys. Like I recommend this so much, and it's free. It's free, and it's 4 hours long. Like
easy read, man, and it is
yeah.
so good.
Easy read, and like there's like no risk factor, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I love that about the book. And then, you know, obviously I'm not going to get into spoilers, but for you, Gabe, dude, I was at work today working in a customer's house. I was putting trim up, and that ending happened before the twist at the very end.
Yep.
And I'm like crying. I'm like, no, no. And I was so upset. And I was like, oh my God, if it ends like this, like it's still a good ending, but I'm gonna be like really, really sad.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of this twist at the end.
And
I'm just like, it's so good. God. I'm like, oh my God, that was like a 10 out of 10 ending. Like that was a perfect ending for it to go out that way. And so I was super satisfied by the end of it. And I really, really hope that they do a book too.
Yeah.
I really, really hope they do. So I have a few other books that I read recently, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to tell you about one of them because I think it particularly pertains to you.
Okay. Yes. I was going to ask you, like,
yes,
give me a rating on Gabe's scale.
Yes, dude. So you're going to love this book. So first of all, I'll just get out there real quick before I go into the one that you're really going to like. I finished The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. And listeners, if you want like a complete like mind bender, like something that is going to throw the biggest twist at you, like Stephen King or Dean Koontz style, read The Last House on Needless Street. Like it is a psychological like mind bender unlike anything I've ever read, and it was phenomenal. And I'll let you listeners do your own research, so I'm not going into it for a half hour, but yeah, definitely if you want something that's not fantasy but that is like mystery, thriller, suspense, psychological, definitely The Last House on Needless Street. Throughout the whole book, I had all these theories, and by the end of it, just none of them were correct at all.
Oh, wow. That's the best kind of book, man.
Yeah. Super, super satisfying. All right. So, Gabe.
Yes.
You need to read Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. So I finished this book I finished this book right before I started Proven Guilty.
Okay.
And by the end of it, I was like, if this isn't a Gabe ass Gabe book, I don't know what is.
That's awesome.
So it's set in kind of the same time period as like a Wee Men of Ash and Shadow, kind of like a Victorian-ish era.
Gotcha.
So our main character is a thief called Sancha, and we get introduced to her like first thing in the book, and she's kind of a solo thief, and she's going on this heist. And she has this magical ability where she has to wear gloves all the time because anything she touches, she gets like all this information about that object. And so she can infiltrate a building and like put her hand to the wall and know like the whole layout of the building. And she can like know where people are and all this stuff. And so she's been hired to find this box for one of like the crime bosses, basically. And so she goes and she gets this box, she steals it, has this whole runaway scene, gets back to her hideout and opens this thing. And it's a key, but it not only is it a key, it can talk, like it's sentient.
Well, a sentient key.
Yeah,
dude.
And so think like remember in like Beauty and the Beast how like the candlestick and all of those guys could talk. That's kind of how I thought of it. And dude, if you like the companion dynamic between Richter and Scion,
Ooh.
or Richter and Alma, dude, this
Okay, then
like
yeah, sold.
yeah, the
Sold.
dynamic that these characters have together just becomes like my favorite thing in the entire world. And so she gets this key, and there's kind of this conspiracy that unfolds. She starts learning like why people wanted this key, and like what it actually means for like humankind.
Whoa.
And so like there's like this big like conspiracy that she keeps unraveling. And there's this police officer who is like after her for like the first half of the book. And it's just kind of like this cat and mouse game. She's trying to outrun everybody and outmaneuver everybody. And it's really hard to go into any more without giving away
sure.
like spoilers. Yeah. But dude, I promise you that like this is like that. The first thing I thought of when I finished this book, I was like, Gabe would love this book. And so the next time that you're like, oh, what should I read or whatever,
yeah,
you definitely have to pick up Foundry Side. I'm gonna remind you of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in my notes right this second. Foundry Side.
Because yeah, dude, it was absolutely phenomenal. And like at no point was I ever bored, but the first half of the book is really fun. But the second half of the book, I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, this is awesome. Like, there's something that gets revealed about halfway through. And once that happens, like the stakes just keep rising and rising and rising. And it just gets crazy by the end of it. And so today, after finishing Impact Winter, I started the second book in the Foundry Side trilogy, which is Shorefall.
How big are they? Is it a longer read or are they shorter?
I think on 1.3 speed, it was like 14 hours, maybe 13 hours. Bad. Yeah. So yeah, you could probably do it in like 2 or 3 days, just bust through it.
Yeah, dude.
But dude, it was so much fun. Like I don't know. I would love to talk about it in depth, but I'm afraid to get
No, you're good. Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Okay.
I'll read it.
You're gonna love it.
I'll start it tomorrow.
For sure. All right. Well, other than that, so sometimes in this section we talk about what we've been watching, but I haven't really been watching anything lately.
Euphoria.
Oh yes,
dude, Did you watch the newest one?
Nope, I still have not caught up with Euphoria,
dude. Okay, yeah. How far behind are you? Because
since we last talked, yesterday, I still haven't.
Dude, yeah, I'm serious. Yeah. Serious. Go watch it. Watch it tonight, dude.
Just put
one episode on tonight.
I will for sure. I will for sure. But yeah, I watched a few more episodes of Sword Art Online, but I haven't like completely finished it yet. So I'm still working on that.
Where are you at? Just really, we don't have to get into it, but I'm just curious. Do you remember what happened last?
Well, let me click over to it right now.
All right.
I'm on episode 4 of that second arc.
Okay. Read me the description for it.
I don't think there is one.
Oh, okay.
I'm on a weird
oh, I got you.
Website.
Like third party. Yeah. I got you. That's fine.
It's called gogoanime.fi. So if that tells you anything, like it's probably a sketchy website.
Does.
But yeah, I think I'll say this: Kirito is still in a wheelchair.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Got it.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it for me. Would you like to start talking about Proven Guilty here?
Sure. Let's do it.
Dude, I'm so excited. Okay, guys. So this is your spoiler warning. It's all been spoiler free up until now. But if you have not read Proven Guilty, we are going to go into spoilers for that book. We're not going to spoil anything beyond Proven Guilty, so you don't need to worry about that. But definitely, if you haven't read Proven Guilty, I would turn back now because there's some really cool stuff in this book that you should really just experience for yourself.
Yes.
So spoilers in 3, 2, 1, you've been warned. So you said this book reignited your love for Dresden Files
Absolutely,
after we
dude.
took a little bit of a break from it.
Yep,
You want to talk
absolutely.
about that a little bit?
Yeah, man, of course. Of course, like I've read through the series several times,
Right.
and it's probably been like 6 months or something like that since I've read a Dresden Files book. It's been a long time. And so I think those first 2 times, like I read it, but I loved it, but I don't think that I really truly appreciated it. Like this
Sure.
book, Proven Guilty, for what it is. And so like reading it again, I'm just like, I was like elated, dude. It was like,
Yeah.
I was like at work and I'm just like getting mad and I'm crying and then I'm laughing. I'm like doing all this
Yes.
stuff. And it was just so good, man. And the way that it sets up, there's so much that happens in this book that sets the stage for like the rest of the series,
Yes.
And so yeah, it was cool to see it. And I definitely caught on to some more stuff this time, I think, that I missed last time. And yeah, it was such a good book. Like I would
Yes.
have to say now, because I was always like Battlegrounds and Peace Talks. Like those were like have been my 2 favorites. This one's by far at the top of the list right now, for sure.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, dude. I think this book is kind of this book is kind of the linchpin
Yeah,
of everything that
that's a good.
happens later.
Yep.
Like everything with Molly becoming his apprentice,
Yeah.
and the stuff that Thomas is involved in, even though if you haven't read Beyond Proven Guilty, you don't know what's going on with Thomas yet, but everything he's doing in this book kind of leads up to some stuff that happens later. And Molly getting taken to Arctis Tour by Mab.
Yeah.
That's like a huge, like, that's so fucking important later in the series. And so, yeah, there's just like a ton of stuff that really, and there's stuff that we don't even know that like there's stuff that we don't like have the answers to.
Yep.
Not only by the end of this book, but even at Battlegrounds, like we still don't know. So we don't know who hit Harry's car in the beginning. We don't know who fixed Little Chicago, and we don't know who cast Hellfire in Fairy.
Yeah.
And so these are things that, like, even at the end of Battlegrounds, like, we still don't have answers to.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes this book such an interesting book for me, is there's just so much mystery. There's so much that's like still being speculated about. But just to kind of gush for a minute, I fucking love this book, dude. This is probably like my number 1 favorite book since the very beginning. This is the first book that I read of the Dresden Files.
Oh, wow.
And obviously probably a really bad place to come into the Dresden Files, because there was so much that's going on where you have to at least have read like Deadbeat or maybe a couple books before that to really understand what's even going on in Proven Guilty. But I read this book and I loved it so much right from the get-go, with everything with Molly, this whole mystery with Molly. That was so addicting, trying to figure out like how is she involved in this story for Proven Guilty, and like how is this going to pan out for her. And then Michael asking Harry to watch out for his family while he's gone and to try to get them to reconcile. And you're kind of left asking, like, how the hell is he going to do this? And then of course, just the way that he reconciles Molly and Charity and everybody at the end is just so unbelievably heartwarming. And I'm probably gonna quote that later on, and I'm gonna tear up. But it seriously is such a phenomenal book. I was literally, dude, I forgot how emotionally charged this book is.
Yeah, for sure.
Mostly everything with Molly. And dude, I was like tearing up throughout this whole book. Like there was so many times, especially last night when I was finishing it, dude, I was sitting here editing a podcast, and like just the scene of Molly kind of telling Charity, like, look at, like, you're going to blame Harry.
Yes.
Like, look at what he's doing for me. Like, he's giving his life for me. Like, what
Yep.
more can you ask of him?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like sobbing. Like, I'm just like
Yep.
crying. And so I think this book has so many moments like that are so emotionally charged. And yeah, I think I just have a lot of nostalgia for this book because it was the first one that I read, but also for a long time, like the only two books that I had, like the only two books that I owned was Proven Guilty and White Knight.
Yeah.
And so I just read those like a million times.
Yep.
And then finally I started going to libraries and getting all the other books. But yeah, this book has such like a strong, you know, emotional tie to me.
Yeah.
And it's just phenomenal. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but something that's really interesting about this story is that you can read it one time through and kind of get this simple kind of overview of what's going on. Like, okay, there's baddies in town that are attacking this, like this horror con kind of thing, the splatter con place. Yep. You know, they're getting summoned from somewhere, but we don't know who. And, you know, there's black magic somewhere in Chicago. And then, you know, he goes out, Molly gets stolen. So he goes out at the Fae. These are all things that, like, if taken at, you know, surface value, it still makes a great story.
Yeah.
But if you've reread a bunch of times, there's still so much that you can break down every single time.
Yep.
And, you know, somebody on Reddit posted this thing because I was looking up, I was trying to figure out, and apparently this is something that we still don't know for certain, but I was trying to figure out why when Harry reflected the fetches back onto the summoner,
Yeah.
why did they go to Molly? Because I don't think Molly summoned them.
Well, I think that, doesn't he say that though? It was the fear that she was like, I guess.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because
I
she was causing so much fear with her magic, and so they were drawn to her.
I think that's how either Harry said that or something. I could be amiss, but I do remember something like that.
That does make sense. But and this next thing doesn't have to do so much with why they went back to Molly, but I thought it was a really interesting point that somebody made on Reddit. They said, in short, Mab sent the fetches and set up Madrigal as a fall guy in order to get Harry involved. She wanted him in the heart of winter so she could justify pulling her troops away from Summer's border, but she couldn't just let him in. So she intentionally lets an outsider attack almost succeed so that Harry and company will have a little opposition to reach Molly. There's more to it, but that's probably a decent start, he says. And I just thought this was so interesting because I had never really thought about it before. And it's like, wow, there's like moves within moves within moves within moves that Mab is doing. Like, she's got layers upon layers upon layers to her plan. If she was in fact the person that sent the fetches, and I think this person makes a pretty good point for it. But I just thought that was interesting. I'm like, dude, I never caught that many layers to Mab's plan.
Yeah.
And you know, it makes sense that she was doing that to simultaneously have a reason to move her troops away from Summer's border, but also to get Harry into winter, because she needed him in winter, probably to see the winter night and see what he's going through, the torture that he's going through.
And the Lananchi too.
And the Lananchi, she needed him to see the Lananchi. And she also needed Molly there. And she needed Harry to go get Molly from winter for things that play out later, cold days. But I just thought that was a super interesting Reddit comment. So any other like general thoughts about Proven Guilty before we get into like some of our favorite like character moments and stuff like that?
Probably not. I think it'll get covered once we start talking about
For sure.
the characters and the rest.
So a little bit of not too much, but a little bit of world building in this book. We get to see Arctis Tor for the first time. This is the stronghold of the Winter Fae.
Yep.
And that was so cool. Like
Yeah.
the fortress where they're walking in, there's just these bones
Everywhere.
out in the courtyard, and they're like walking like waist deep in bones, or like probably walking on top of them.
Yep.
And they're just like, what happened here? And we still don't know. Like, we still don't know what all that was. And that is so interesting. And then not only that, but we learned that Winter has a wellspring.
Yeah.
And Harry takes this summer fire from the little butterfly that Lilly gave him, and he sends summer fire into the wellspring, the heart of Winter. And when Harry gets back out of the portal, Fix is like, you did what?
Yeah.
Like, you did not just put summer fire into Winter's wellspring.
Yeah. He's like, well, that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. And it's not really made clear what that does as far as like just putting the fire into the wellspring,
other than piss off every Winter Fae there ever was.
Yeah. And so then they get this whole like great hunt coming after them, right? Like they get all of the Fae in Winter are just coming at them.
Yep.
And so that was a cool bit of world building. We'll definitely learn a little bit more about Arctis Tor in maybe 4 or 5 books.
Yep.
So looking forward to that. We get a lot more interactions with the kind of mortal world in this book, I feel like. Because we've dealt with what's Murphy's cop force called? Special SI. Special investigations. Yep. And so we see those cops a lot, but we haven't really run into a whole lot of regular ass cops, you know? And so we get this spooky thing that goes down at the convention. And then the vanilla police show up, like the head honchos that don't believe in magic or like don't believe in the supernatural. And we see Harry kind of have to navigate talking to this guy who doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And there's even one point where he's like, so what happened to the bad guy? And Harry's like, I hit him. He's like, with your fist? And he's like, no, with magic.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, can you just be serious with me? And Harry's like, look, you can believe me or not believe me. I'm not going to change my story just because you don't believe in magic.
Yep.
And that's something that's always interesting about Harry, because he advertises himself as a wizard openly, and he doesn't hide any of this stuff, but people just don't believe him.
Yeah.
And so it's like hiding in plain sight. It's awesome. But yeah, I felt super bad for him in that scene, because that detective guy made him for like an hour or so, made him go through his story over and over.
Yeah, like 8 or 9 times.
Yeah, and honestly, at some point, I would have been like, okay, this is like harassment. Like, like I'm leaving. Like you have nothing on me. Like you can't arrest me. Like this is harassment. But yeah, so it was interesting to see some of the more vanilla police force, some of the more mortal interactions, like with what was her name, Sandra Marling or whatever from the convention, who Molly's friend or whatever. And so we get to see a lot more of those interactions. That's pretty cool. And then we get to see Cabrini Green. So I got this quote talking about Cabrini Green, just one of the areas of Chicago. And I just thought this was kind of a interesting passage. He's talking about Cabrini Green, and he says, the nasty hadn't left the city, of course, but it had been driven away from what had once been a stronghold of decay and despair. What was left behind wasn't the prettiest section of town, but it bore the quiet, steady signs of a place that had a passing acquaintance with law and order. Of course, the cynical would point out that Cabrini Green was only a short walk away from the Gold Coast, one of the richest areas in the city, and it was no coincidence that funds had been sent that way by the powers that be through various municipal programs. The cynical would be right, but it didn't change the fact that the people of the area had worked and fought to reclaim their homes from fear, crime, and chaos. On a good day, the neighborhood made you feel like there was hope for us as a species, that we could drive back the darkness with enough will and faith and help. And I'm like, man, that's just a great way to describe like a section of city that is like on the verge of becoming something great, like hardworking people who are trying to make an effort to, drive back the darkness. I read all that just because I really like this characteristic of Harry where he sees the general good in humankind.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to, talk about the bad as well. Like he realizes that there are some really, sick people out there. Like there's some really big monsters out there. But he kind of has this overall attitude of, the people of Chicago are my people. And these are like hardworking people that are working to make a better future for themselves. Yep. And I've just always appreciated that about Harry. And so I really liked that quote. So then we got some new magic stuff.
Yes.
Do you remember this web that Harry put up in the convention with the Play-Doh?
Yep, with the blue Play-Doh.
Yeah. So I thought this was pretty interesting. Do you remember what he was saying about like the different colors?
Yeah. So he was trying to, he was explaining it to Murphy, I think, was it right? She's like, why blue? And he just was saying like, blue is protection or defense. Green is like,
fertility.
He listed all these colors. They kind of have like this, I guess
significance
attached to him. Exactly. And then he went on to say, he's like, other people might not have this problem, but since this is what I believe, right? I was taught this way. And so like for me doing magic, it's got to be something you are absolutely all in for. And he's like, so this, blue is defense. This is how it works for me. Right. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super interesting because for somebody else, maybe from a different culture or, some other kind of way of being trained in magic, for them, red might be defense.
Yeah. Yep.
But, if you're taught that blue is for defense from when you're young and learning magic, that's going to be something that's ingrained in your head.
Yeah.
And if you, at a later point in life, if you try to switch it to red, like
there's wouldn't work.
There's a possibility that the spell would fail. Yeah. Because like deep down in your heart that blue is defense.
Yep.
Right. For you. And so I thought that was I really, really love that part of the magic system because it opens up so much possibility for like really like Jim Butcher could do anything with this magic system, because the rule basically is if you believe in something hard enough, you can do it.
Yeah.
And like, and you need some like science and, mathematics to go along with it to complete your spell. But if you believe that something should work because of reason, then it will.
Yes.
And so that's something I've always liked about this series. And it also kind of opens up, kind of the thing we see with Molly and why her using the magic she did was so scary, because you do have to believe what you're doing is right. You have to believe that what you're doing is you're doing it for the right reason, and you have to honestly believe in it. Yep. And so for Molly to believe that messing with somebody's mind to try to fix them, for her to believe that is kind of a scary thing, because it's like, okay, you've already kind of crossed a little bit of a line.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And, you know, you've already kind of gone to this place where you're lowering your moral standards for what you find acceptable.
Yeah.
And the more you do that in magic, the easier it's going to be for you to keep lowering that bar.
Yep.
And keep doing messed up things.
Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of, you know, maybe not a major theme in this book. We definitely see it as a major thing and a major theme in later books. But I think it was kind of a cool underlying tone to this book that, you know, Harry starts out with this web thing, and that's kind of when he introduces, you know, you have to believe in what you're doing. And I think that Jim Butcher put that there so that when we got to Molly later on, we would be like,
understood.
Oh, she believes in this. Like, oh, that's scary. And so I think that was just really, really good writing.
Yep, I agree.
So then we see Harry start to do a magic ritual for Little Chicago. Do you remember all these things he had to do? Like we've never seen this before until now, this ritual magic.
I do it like the shower, first of all. I think that was the first thing he did. And he got the white robes on with the hood, candles laid out, incense, and he like meditated. He was like a solid like 2 or 3 hours, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Until he got interrupted by a phone call.
And then the fucking can I just read that quote real quick?
Read it.
Oh, because I have that.
Yeah, read it. That's so good. He
says, so he's in the middle of his I love this quote so much. He's in the middle of his meditation, and he's like talking about how everything was perfectly still. And he says, silence and stillness ruled, and I was ready. And then the fucking phone rang right next to my ear.
Yep. Oh,
I love that image so much of him just like sitting next to the table, completely still. And then this phone, like, can you imagine being so deep in like a trance, and all of a sudden the phone goes off? Like, I can only imagine how destructive.
Like, and he's like, well, there goes 6 hours of fucking work, all gone.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we talked about this a little bit, but he redirected I forget what they were, either the phobophages or the fetches.
The fetches, yeah.
Back at the summoner. And that was kind of a cool scene, even though he was sending him back at Molly.
Yeah.
That was kind of a cool scene because there was like a 2nd-by-2nd breakdown of that spell.
Yep.
And like he gets the trigger on his web, and he's like, okay, they're here. And then he gets like a pinpoint in his mind to the summoner, like a spiritual link. And then like he's counting down the seconds. He's like, I have to do this the very last second.
Yep.
And like right as he gets down, he sends the spell out. And I really like that moment. Yep. Yeah. What about any other magic that we saw in this book that you can think of?
There's kind of a cool scene towards the end with Molly. This is when they're in the church, and this is when Molly tries to like get up to leave after she's back from Arctis tour or whatever, and he catches her.
Yeah.
And he's explaining to her, about the damage that she did to her friends. And there's this moment where she's like, I did not hurt them. And then Terry's like, there was like this, he's something like, I could feel the energy, this malicious energy charging. And he's like, it's enough to do something unfortunate. And he's like, this kid is not in control. And so he's like, sticks his hand, palm out, and like, does his thing. And he basically absorbs this energy and then grounds it. And that was like the first time I think that we see him actually do that. There's another time in the future where that happens, but I thought that was really cool. I was like, I just like picturing it, this girl's freaking out, charged air, energy everywhere. And he just absorbs it and grounds it. Like, it's so badass.
Yeah, that is such a badass scene. Yeah. That is, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I actually forgot about it.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic scene. And just like the calmness, like just like 2nd by 2nd, he's recognizing that she is starting to lose control.
Yes.
And in a way, he kind of lets her like vent all this like magic, and it's accumulating. And he's like, okay, now it's too dangerous, and like just takes it and like just puts it away. And it was such a power move, especially in front of Molly. Like, you know, she wasn't like trying to attack him or anything, but he's basically showing like, anything you throw at me, I can literally just take and ground.
Yeah.
Like anything that you can call up, I can completely disperse it. So don't even try.
Yep. And not only that, like right after he did that, the next like, paragraph or whatever basically explains that like Molly, like once the energy got dispersed and grounded, like she calmed, she like, you could tell. And that's, magic emotions, man. They're highly linked in these
tied together.
Series.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and then we see as far as new magic stuff, we've seen what does he call it? The name of the spell when he opens a portal.
Like Arparturum is the word that he uses.
Arparturum, yeah. And so we see but he doesn't do very good Arparturums.
Yeah.
And Lilly opens up one that looks like real life. Like she opens up a perfect portal the size of a movie screen.
Yep.
And he was just like, I've never seen anything like this. Like I've never even seen anything close to the amount of skill in this portal that's being opened.
Yeah.
And so that was a really cool moment too.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's get into the good stuff here. We talked about the magic system. Let's talk about kind of the journey that Harry goes on in this book. Do you want to talk about kind of the growth that he went through in this book from kind of beginning to end, like where he was at the beginning compared to, some of the responsibilities he's taking on later on in the book?
For sure, absolutely. So I think I don't really know how to describe him like before, but I can note the changes that I saw basically. So I think the entire thing with, first of all, the gatekeeper gives him this note, like there's black magic in Chicago, whatever. That's kind of what kicks this whole thing off. And then the journey with, SplatterCon. But I really think that the majority of the growth that I saw has to do with Molly. Whole everything with her. You see a side of him where, and the part where I think he's talking to Charity, and he says like, I will not, they will have to kill me, like in front of the White Counselor. They'll have to kill me. I will not come back here without your daughter over my dead body. And even that right there is like pretty like not noble, but it's like you could tell like the maturity, responsibility, like you said, was like, up there.
Sure. Yeah. I think that, I don't think he ever considered having an apprentice when we were at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
But it really makes sense narratively when you think about it, because at the beginning of the book, this kid gets killed in front of him. And, like right there in a warehouse, the White Council, like basically just murders him. And Harry is like, hey, we should be like this kid was too far gone, but we need to be like looking for these kids that are showing signs of talent and bring them in and teach them how to use their powers responsibly. And I think that is such a good kind of launching off point for him to then become a mentor and teach somebody and be the change that he wants to see. And so I really liked that whole journey of him just kind of realizing little by little that he is going to need to take responsibility for Molly. And it happens, I feel like it happens even before he finds out about her magic, because she calls him and she's like, hey, I need you to bail me out. And it ends up being Nelson. But he kind of has this attitude of like, this is most definitely not my problem.
Yeah.
Like, I'm only doing this because your father is like my best friend.
Yep.
And so he's really upset with Molly. And he's like, why? He kind of is just like, why am I even having to deal with this? Like, your parents should be here. But then as SplatterCon kind of goes on and she gets pulled in by the cops, you know, he kind of gets
Oh
this.
yeah, that's a cool scene.
That's like
Also.
that.
Yep.
I love that scene.
Yep.
She gets pulled in by the cops, and he finds that he has this like protective instinct for her.
Yeah.
And so he goes and gets the reporter.
Yep.
And goes to the cops, and he's like, dude, I just love the way he was messing with them.
Yeah.
He was messing with them so hard.
Yep.
And then he's like, what did he say? He's like, oh, did you inform her that this is completely voluntary information that she's given you?
Yeah. And Molly's like, what?
Yeah. And she's like, what? I thought I had to tell them. He's like, oh, Rudolph, you didn't tell her?
Was it Rudolph or Green? Wasn't it Green or something?
It was Green and Rudolph. Yeah.
Or was it?
They were in the same room.
It wasn't Rick?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was Rick.
Green
I
and
always
Rick.
get
Okay.
those two confused.
Yeah. No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure. Like Green, you know, Harry finally gets to him, and Rick's like, he's got you. You took a chance and you lost. I was like, dude, that's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that part. And then he's finally just like, yeah, I should get a hold of the news and let them know that you're investigating a minor without her parents' consent.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? She's a minor or whatever. He's like, you knew she was a minor. And then the reporter just comes in the room and starts asking a ton of questions. And so
Green storms out all pissed off.
Oh my God, it is so good. But yeah, I think that's like a really excellent point in the story where we start to see him taking more and more personal responsibility for Molly.
Yeah.
And then by the time it gets to the point where he finds out about her magic, I just love this moment he has where he's like, she is completely and utterly fucked.
Yeah.
Like, she is so screwed. Like, the White Council is going to behead her. And so he makes a decision to put not only his entire life, but like his entire, like, this little bit of reputation that he's built up with the White Council, he puts it all on the line for Molly, taking complete responsibility for her. And I just love that growth so much. Yeah. And not only that, but also kind of the growth of, so at the beginning of the book, Ebenezer is, they're like not doing well together, like Ebenezer and Harry, because in the previous book, or maybe it was even the one before that, Ebenezer tells Harry that he is the Blackstaff.
Yeah.
And Harry is super upset, and he's just like, oh my God, like, you murder people for the White Council.
Yep.
And he's like, you know, you're nothing like what I thought. And then as Harry goes through this journey, I think that he realizes through being a mentor to Molly, he realizes like what Ebenezer did for him by taking the doom of Damocles on himself.
Yeah.
And I think he has this moment near the end where he's just like, dude, what am I doing? Like, Ebenezer loves me and I love him. And like, why am I fighting with him like this? And then they reconcile in the end. And I think that is such an important journey. And then lastly, the other thing that comes to mind as far as his growth in this book is he has this amazing moment with Murphy and Michael at two different times. In the last book, he killed someone. He killed Corpse Taker in cold blood, and Cassius in cold blood.
Yep.
like not in the heat of battle. Like he walked up to her and shot her in the back of the head.
Yep.
And it is messing with him in this book. And like at the beginning of this book, like he is so like screwed up over it. And then he has kind of this meeting with Murphy that I'll talk about a little bit more later. But he has this meeting with Murphy where she's like, "You're a good man, Harry. Like we know that you're a good man. Like, you know, you did what you had to do." And then he has a similar conversation with Michael.
Yep.
You know, throughout this book, he's kind of having the growth of coming to terms with this thing that he did and understand the necessity of it, and kind of just like come to terms with it and understand that like he needs to get past this. And Molly probably plays a factor in that as well, because he's like, if I don't get past this thing that I'm dealing with, like I'm going to put that onto her. I'm sure that's going on in his head somewhere.
Yep.
And so, yeah, there was just a lot of like really good, like Harry kind of moving forward into the next stage of his life. And, you know, the next, you know, I feel like the books kind of go in these different arcs. And, you know, like we have the Grave Peril through Death Mass arc, and that's kind of like all one similar thing.
Yep.
And then we have Deadbeat and Proven Guilty. And I would say Deadbeat, Proven Guilty, and White Knight are kind of their arc. And then, you know, starting at like Small Favor until maybe right before Changes is just another kind of arc. And I think that this book really sets up everything for him to go into Small Favor and beyond in like a mentally healthy way. You know, this isn't spoiling too much, but we'll see in White Knight, like his confidence is up. He's at like the top of his game. And this book is like that thing that gets him from the spiraling depression that is Deadbeat to White Knight, where he is like this confident, like he is the sheriff of Chicago. And this is the book that like gets him there. And so that's one thing that I really, really like about this book, is just how it moves Harry throughout the story.
That's very well said.
All right. So let's talk about my unofficial future wife, Molly Carpenter. I will marry her someday. So Molly Carpenter is like easily, if Harry is like my number one favorite character, Molly is easily the second favorite.
For sure.
Character.
I'm right there with you. I totally agree.
Yeah, I think she is just such a phenomenal character. And I think what I like about her so much is in this book, she is so uncertain, and she is so like unsure of herself. And she's making all these, not mistakes, but just like she's trying to like learn about herself. I mean, she does make mistakes, but like what I'm getting at is the thing with Nelson, like she's starting to learn that she doesn't love Nelson. Like she's not, like this isn't a thing that she wants to pursue long term. And so she's kind of in this stage of life where she's a teenager and she's trying to kind of figure out what she wants to do. And I guess there is some Molly growth in this book, particularly around the time they find out about her magic. But then, you know, I really can't wait to talk about her in White Knight, because I think that is some of the most Molly growth that we get. And she's like my favorite thing about White Knight. I can't wait to talk about it. But Molly in this book, so like I love her character and everything, but her storyline in this book, just the mystery that is Molly in Proven Guilty, is so phenomenal. I'd like to ask you when if you can remember, when you first read Proven Guilty and Molly called Harry and he goes to the CPD, Chicago Police Department, to bail her out. Like, did you foresee her having any sort of magic or being any way involved in like the black magic stuff that was going on? Was there any hints?
No, no, I don't think there was. I think that I knew that it was going to be an important part of the story, or at least her character was going to be involved somehow. Because I think the way that, when the call came and the timing and all this and kind of the
Sure.
story, like when he got there, you're not actually here for me, like Nelson, got to get him out. There's some bad people chasing him or whatever else, or bad stuff
Yeah.
happened. So I think that was it. But I definitely don't think that I knew that she was like the one that the gatekeeper like was talking about. I
Yeah.
I don't think I could have told that.
I know. Yeah, I was in the same boat. I think when it finally got revealed that Molly was involved in the manipulation of Nelson and Rosie,
Yeah.
I was completely blown away.
Yeah.
And like I just remember reading it for the first time and just loving probably my favorite scene in the whole book. And there's no like real good reason for this, but my favorite scene in the whole book is when Harry goes to the police station and he's met Molly before,
Yeah.
but
Like
just
when
like
she was
in
like little
passing.
too, and
Yeah.
like it's been a while.
Yeah. And so this is the first time that we are really meeting like the Molly that we're going to come to know, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the first time that we're really like seeing her for like the like she becomes such an important person, and just like this kind of initial interaction I love so much, but also because it really felt like I don't know if you've ever watched on the CW back in the day, there was a show called like Charmed or like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I've seen
Like
Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
for
but not
some
Charmed.
reason this scene just really reminded me of like a TV show,
Hmm.
and I can just picture it so well in my mind of like exactly like how it would be shot and how it would
Yeah,
look. And I don't know why I just really love that scene.
for sure.
But her whole storyline in general, just to where you know she's kind of trying to push all this stuff under the rug, like she's trying to like because she doesn't want to come to Harry and tell her or tell him what she did. He has to like kind of pull it out of her. And so this whole time that she's at the convention with him, she's just going on like everything is normal.
Yeah, yeah,
And but
exactly.
but really she's like harboring like this dark secret. And matter of fact, like she thinks that she was helping them.
Yeah, she
Um,
she probably doesn't even consider that like a dark thing at the time. Like she's just
that's
like,
true.
I did the right thing. Like, I knew what was right, and whatever, but obviously it wasn't right.
Yeah. And I just love I just kind of love how that plays out where he finds out he has to kind of pull it out of her, and then she finally tells him, like she kind of explains everything, and then she goes on to like argue that what she was doing was the right thing and all
Yeah,
that. And he has to like really knock her down a couple
yeah,
pegs like a few times and say like, look, you have no idea what you're talking about, like you really messed them up, like you have no idea how badly you messed them
yeah,
up.
yep,
And I would have loved for Harry to be like, okay, you want to see, and like have her open her sight
yeah.
and look at Nelson and look at Rosie and like see what she did.
She probably couldn't have handled it at that time though. That could have
Right.
broken her. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I think that just along the growth line, and you kind of mentioned this, like towards the end, we see a lot more Molly growth. And I think that like when Harry, after that scene, like where he's telling her how bad she damaged her friends, right? Nelson's probably already insane, he says. Like he may never come back from that.
Right.
When she like agrees to go to the White Council, like voluntarily. And then also when Charity's like, they bring it to Charity, and we kind of already talked about this. Charity's like, no, absolutely not. We're not doing that. And Molly
Right.
just very calmly, she says, Mother, what has Harry done in the last week to, like to hurt me? What has he done to hurt you? You know, I don't know. That was like, that's probably like where I knew I was like, all right, she's got the potential. This kid can do it, you know?
Yeah.
She knows what's going on. She's not too far gone.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna read that scene
Okay,
here
perfect.
in a little bit, because that is
Yep.
like one of my favorite monologues in the entire series. Like
Yep.
that is
Yes.
like, it's so good and it's so emotional and just like makes me cry every
Yeah.
single time. And that whole chapter is phenomenal.
Yeah, there's a quote, or
Yeah.
I will just wait till we get to quotes. I don't have to skip that.
Okay. So something that I thought was interesting that somebody else, I think on Reddit, pointed out was, Molly gets taken to Arctis Tour, and in grave peril, Leah
Yeah.
offered a trade for Michael's firstborn, which would be Molly. So Mab is obviously interested in Molly to some extent, because Leah doesn't do anything without like Mab's consent, right?
Yeah.
And so like Mab had to know that she was trying to obtain this child. And so it's kind of interesting to see, like, damn, like, was this planned out like that long ago?
Yeah.
Like Leah trying to get Molly and trying to offer a deal for her, and then to kidnap her in this book and take her to Arctis Tour. It's just kind of interesting. I never really realized how far back that whole thing kind of stretched. And then I guess just to kind of wrap up the Molly section, Molly gets stolen away to Arctis Tour. And if you're somebody who has just finished proven guilty, like, pay attention to this, because this is like super, super significant later on. Like, there is a reason why Mab or whoever brought Molly to Arctis Tour. And so, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, we're going along this storyline with this convention and these random monsters that are popping up. What do the Fae have to do with any of this? And so this whole thing is kind of just like a huge opportunity for Mab. And it's one of the first major moves we see her make, besides Lloyd Slate's death in Summer Night. Yeah, I think that, this is just like a huge event. Everything with Harry going to Arctis Tour, Molly being there, Molly being taken there by Winter Fae. There's all a pretty big significance to that.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that. And speaking of other hot blondes, let's talk about Murphy. Yes. Karen Murphy. That's what I was looking for. I was like, I said Murphy, and I'm like, what's Murphy's last name?
No, it's
Murphy is your like Karen Murphy. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, what'd you think about Murphy in this book? She had a couple pretty good scenes.
Yep. I thought it was good. I thought that her and Harry's they had a couple conversations about the potential for a relationship.
Yeah.
The potential for them maybe being together. And so it was kind of a couple rocky conversations in my opinion, especially the second one. I was like, oh yeah, Harry, you poor guy.
I know.
Sucks, dude. That sucks. Murphy's like, I can't do for you what you think I can, basically, or whatever she said. And I was like, that hurt. Yeah. And then also another thing that I thought was really cool about Murphy, when they went to Arctis Tour, right? So that, time works different in the Fae. And so her helping Harry to go rescue Molly, she basically like gave up, it was 24 hours. And she's like, I'm going to lose SI. I'm going to do all this. And she's like, I wouldn't do it any differently though. Like, I'm happy to help you. And I'm glad that we saved her. But like just her sacrifice in that, because I think she knew, even before they went in, like this,
that something could happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought that was really cool, and just shows like the loyalty and just the like willingness to like do good, even if it means sacrificing everything she's worked for in SI and whatnot.
Absolutely. And I think I even she has a pretty great conversation with Harry when they're having that first talk about their relationship.
Yeah.
And she apologizes for how she acted in the first 3 or 4 books, because she was kind of an asshole at the beginning. And she didn't trust him. And now we're finally getting to this point, and we saw it a little bit in Blood Rights, I think, where Murphy is starting to become cool and she's starting to trust Dresden.
Yep.
And then this is really the book where she's like giving everything up for Dresden.
Yeah.
She's like, I have total faith in you. Like, you do what you have to do and I will be there by your side.
Yes.
And so I think that is like a super important moment for Murphy. Let me see if I can find this quote. They're talking about their relationship. And Harry says, Karen, have you ever thought about, us? She says, sometimes. Me too, I said, but the timing always seems to be off somehow. She smiled a little. I noticed. He says, do you think we'll ever get it right? She squeezed my hand gently and then withdrew hers from mine. I don't know, maybe sometime. She frowned at her hand and then said, it would change a lot of things. And Harry says, it would. She says, you're my friend, Harry. No matter what happens, sometimes in the past, I haven't really done right by you. And he says, like when you handcuffed me in my office. She says, right. And when you chipped one of my teeth arresting me. And she's like, I chipped a tooth. He said, and when? And she's like, yes, all right. The point is that I should have seen that you were one of the good guys a lot sooner than I did. And I'm sorry, she growled, jerk. And so, I think that this is, that's kind of like an official turning point of her being like, okay, like, I feel like that's Jim Butcher telling us like, okay, she is no longer this character that I had her being at the beginning. Like she is now fully on Dresden's side. And, for the next while, for the next, all the next books, we see her just being like this amazing companion to Harry. And so, I just thought that was kind of a cool, kind of a turning moment for her. Like she's officially on Harry's side now.
Yep.
All right. We see a little bit of Arthur Langtry, who's the Merlin.
Oh yeah.
And we kind of get this interesting moment that we see pay off in the most recent book in Peace Talks and Battleground. But we see Harry really piss off the Merlin. He wounds his pride in front of everybody in the council. And he outmaneuvers him.
Yeah.
And he officially makes an enemy of the Merlin. And Harry, with a little bit of foreshadowing, Harry mentions that it will come back to bite him eventually. And so, you guys will have to wait until Peace Talks Battleground to see a little bit of that payoff. But they're definitely enemies now. And they kind of have that, not reputation, but kind of that enmity towards each other now.
Yep.
You want to talk about Michael?
Sure. Yeah. We don't see a whole lot of Michael in this book. We in the beginning and then the end, of course.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, this is after, Harry's like gets Molly, helps out Nelson or whatever. And he's like, I'm taking you home. Like, I don't care what you say. We're going home. And they get there and Michael's like about to go out on a mission, right? Like he's like leaving and they kind of chat. Harry tells Michael what's up. And then Michael asked Harry, he's like, can you watch after them while I'm gone? It will make me feel a lot better. There's a huge responsibility, check for Harry right there. And then he also asks if Harry can maybe somehow make them reconcile between Charity and Molly. So there's another big thing that we see in the end. And so then after everything happens, of course, in the meeting with the White Council where Molly's brought up on charges or whatever, tries to get. He shows up and like perfect timing. And dude, the gatekeeper, man, the
Yeah, the
gatekeeper,
gatekeeper.
he's such a freaking mystery to me, dude.
I know.
I know, like, I know you have theories, and I've read a couple myself, but like, I can't wait, even if it takes 10 years.
I
I
know.
cannot wait to figure out who the fuck he is. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what his story is, because like the gatekeeper,
He
he knew all
obviously
this.
knew.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he knew all this was going to happen at the exact time it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And Michael coming in, that's what changed the whole, meeting, right? Like
Yeah.
Molly was gonna die. Arthur
Yeah.
even sentenced her. The
Yep.
sentence is death, and then Michael shows up, and the rest of the senior council, and they get votes or whatever. But so that, and then of course after that, the two parts, or maybe you can talk about the first one, and then I'll talk about this one. So when they're in the car, they're driving back. Molly's asleep in the back. This is
Yeah.
after he talks about the murders and whatnot. But he tells Michael about Lashiel,
Yeah.
the Black and Denaris that or the shade or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, dude, I remember reading this the first time, and I do remember this part because it really stuck out to me. I was so shocked when, like, Harry's like, he's like, he tells him, and then he's like, he's not moving. He's not gonna kill me yet or whatever. And then Michael's just like, I know.
Yeah.
I know exactly what happened. I watched you do it.
Yeah.
Saving my youngest from that coin. And then so that was kind of a mind fuck right there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then of course, like his undying support, like he gives Harry an option. He's like, you can willingly give up the coin and forsake your magic forever. That will get rid of, Lashiel as your power dwindles. And Harry's like, fuck that, I think is what he says. Fuck that. But Michael's just like, no matter what, like, I'll be here. Like, I will be here to help you and support you in any way, shape, or form that you need it. Like you saved my daughter. Like that was, I don't know.
But he also says,
oh yes. And he's like, if you go wrong, like I'll also be there with, holding onto his sword. And then Harry's like, oh shit. Like he there's a moment where he's like terrified. He's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like he's not, he will be there.
Yeah. And then Harry ends up saying, he's like, if I were to ever take up the coin, if I go, I would want you to.
Yep.
And I think that that's such a great relationship between the two of them.
Yeah.
And just, I thought that was so cool when Michael was just like, yeah, I know, I saw the whole thing. Like I've known why you've been avoiding me like this whole time. Like I've known this entire time. Like that's so wild.
It is,
because Harry has just been like avoiding him. Like, I don't want to tell him. But I feel like this might be one of those moments where, because after this book, Harry starts being a lot more open with Michael and telling him a lot more things.
Yep.
And so I think that this might be kind of the point where Harry's like, okay, I have a fallen angel inside of me and he didn't kill me.
Yeah.
So, I think that I can pretty much tell him anything.
Yep.
And so I think that's a really cool point for their relationship.
For sure.
Another cool thing with Michael in this book was the whole reason that he made it back to the council meeting was because he was on a mission and he ran into the other senior council members.
Yep.
And their apprentices and stuff were getting attacked by the Red Court. Or no, it wasn't the Red Court. It was outsiders. And
was it, or it wasn't the Vamps?
I think that there was something to do with the Vamps, but when they were running through the portal, they were being chased by outsiders.
Oh, okay.
And so, and I'm not really sure where the Red Court fits into that, other than, there's kind of this whole war going on. So I wonder if it was just like this, it was some sort of altercation with the Red Court that was going on. And so, he's kind of put in this perfect position by the Almighty, because Fort Hill sends him a message saying, hey, you need to get back here as soon as possible and bring the senior council with you if you're with them. And Michael says that if he hadn't gotten that letter, then he would have just gone off on his own way.
Yeah.
But because he got this letter from Fort Hill, he went with the senior counsel, who came back to that very meeting, walked in at the exact right time.
Yep.
And then Harry, of course, is just like, it looks like he just saved about 20 of our young ones. Maybe we can save one of his.
Yep.
And that was such just an awesome moment.
Badass.
And it's just like, Michael just fits the perfect, just like the perfect idea of a dad who will always come through for his children.
Yeah.
Like always come through for Molly, no matter what. Like,
yep.
Like he is literally like, just Michael is so cool in the way that like he is literally saving her life. Like he literally comes in at the exact right moment to rescue her and save her from these people who are going to execute her. And I'm like, dude, Michael is just like the best dad in fantasy. Like
for sure. Yep. For sure.
We get some weird stuff with Thomas going on in this book. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
You take it.
Okay. So Thomas is acting pretty sketchy in this book. He moves out at the beginning of the book. And he tells Harry that he got a new job, but he won't tell him where.
Yeah.
And then he asks to keep Harry's shotgun. And so Harry's like, okay, like, all right. And then Harry notices that Thomas must be feeding again.
Yeah.
Because, he is able to do all his vampire stunts and stuff when they're in the Fae. Like he's moving really fast and, really, really powerful. And so, he's obviously up to something, but we don't know what yet. But I did like how when Harry was stuck in that gas station or whatever.
Yeah, the garage. Yeah.
Yeah. And Thomas comes to the rescue. Matter of fact, that whole scene with Madrigal putting him up on eBay.
Yeah.
That was that was so terrifying because like by this point in the series, there are so many people that hate Dresden.
Yeah.
That are just like, dude, if somebody was able to get a hold of him like this and like auction him off, like, dude, he would so just be sold to one of his worst enemies.
For
like,
sure.
It would be wild. So Thomas coming to the rescue was awesome. Turns out that he was the guy who was, he's not the guy who hit Harry early on in the book, but he's the guy that was following Harry throughout the book, kind of keeping an eye on him because he knew that Harry was about to get into some trouble.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other characters you want to talk about from this book? Oh. Go ahead. Rollins.
Oh,
Rollins,
yeah.
Dude. Oh my God. I don't have much to say about him, but I love Rollins so much. We saw him in Deadbeat. We see him in this one. I think we might see him in White Knight, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But he gets moved to SI in this book, and so he's kind of working with the crew now.
And he gets teamed up with Murphy at the end too, right? Like once Murphy gets demoted or whatever,
partners,
and they become partners, which is cool. But yeah, I like Rollins a lot too. I think it's cool. It's kind of like his introduction, like when he finally realizes like, oh, well, I think he kind of knew, but some of the scenes he's like, what the fuck is going on? And Harry's like, I mean, this is it. This is magic,
Yeah.
Like this is what it's about. It's fucking nightmare all the time.
And so I like that Rollins, he's simultaneously skeptical, but also kind of accepting. Cause like when Harry first comes to the convention and he goes to the bathroom to look in there, Rollins is like, you can't go in there. Like, I can't let you in there. And Harry kind of talks him into it. And Rollins is like, is this something from the spooky side?
Yeah.
And Harry's like, yeah, I think it is. And then they talk about Nelson, and Rollins like, the kid is innocent. Like, I didn't know what else to do with him besides put him in a jail cell because there's there's no proof that he didn't do it. And
Yeah.
so like it's hard to not just keep him in jail, but
Yep.
you know, he didn't want to, like he knew the kid was innocent and he wanted to like help him. And so I think Rollins kind of has that heart for people. But also I feel like he really respects Harry, even though they kind of give some jibes back and forth. I feel
Yeah.
like Rollins
Oh,
has
definitely.
like this respect for Harry and knows that Harry is like trying to protect Chicago.
Yep.
And so anyway, that's really all I have to say about him. But I just really like him. Every time he's in a scene, it's like really funny. I don't think I have any quotes from him right now, but anytime he's in a scene, it's super, super funny.
Yep.
All right, let's go into, unless you have a character you want to talk about.
No, I was just gonna mention Mouse really quick.
Oh yeah.
He's part of it, and we see we see some of like Mouse's like innate magic kind of come out, like when the fetch, the elder fetch or whatever. This is like right after like Thomas comes to the rescue and shoots Madrigal and the little frog dude,
Yeah.
and he starts
Wow.
running. I'm pretty sure it's the first scene where Harry notices, Mouse is like hurt, right? Like he got hit by a car, his foot's
Yeah.
like all messed up, and I don't know exactly know what he said, but basically notice when Mouse is running, he's like, I noticed these blue motes of light, coming off
Yeah.
his fur as he ran. And I don't know. I love Mouse, dude. I remember the first time I read this book when that car hit Mouse and
Oh
Harry's like, you
yeah.
killed my dog. Dude, I was distraught. I was so
Yes.
fucking sad, dude. I don't know what it is about dogs and books, but I get like so attached so fast. Maybe
Yeah.
I love dogs. But dude, I was heartbroken. And I remembered the feeling when, Harry's like, I heard scratching on the gravel and running. And then he's like, here, Mouse comes around the corner. And I was like, I was so,
Yes.
so, so happy, dude. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like, it's hard to explain how happy
Yeah.
I was. Like, it was like, it was, yeah.
Such a relief.
Yep, such a relief. I was so stoked because I was like, no, we
Yeah.
barely saw much of Mouse at all, dude.
I know, dude. If he died, I would be so,
Yeah,
so pissed.
yeah. Anyways, yeah, I
Um,
just wanted to give him an honorable mention.
for sure. Yeah. Great one. And yeah, I think this is the first book where we see his, there's something a little bit different about Mouse. We don't quite know what yet, but there
Yep.
seems to be a little bit of magic there.
Thomas even mentions it. He's like, does anybody else think that Mouse is a little special? And Harry's like, well, yeah, I always thought he was special. And I think he has another quip right after that. But
yeah,
they're starting to notice, like, he's not just a normal dog.
right. All right, so let's talk about some of our favorite quotes from this book. Did you have any off the top of your head?
Yes, I do. So the scene, I'm pretty sure this is at the first like potential trial run for Little Chicago. This is shortly after Harry, got the letter from the gatekeeper or whatnot, and he goes down in this little cellar and he's kind of talking to Bob, and they're having a conversation, and Harry goes, all I know is that the black magic is somewhere in Chicago. And then Bob goes, vague yet unhelpful. Like, yeah. Just Bob, dude. Like, that's like,
dude.
I love Bob, man. I love him so much.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Bob lines, because like I'm sure I don't need to explain the joke, but like I think like usually somebody would say that's good, but it's unhelpful or whatever, but
yeah.
Both of it's like a double negative. Yeah. It's like
yeah.
vague,
yep. Vague and unhelpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
yep.
Yeah, I love that whole thing with Bob, and like as they're setting up Chicago, like Bob is just like, you shouldn't do this. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And then there's other scenes like when when Molly, like, Harry's about to set up the web or whatever, or get ready for that spell, and Molly comes in to ask to shower, and Bob's like, he just starts perving out. He's like,
yeah,
you haven't tapped that yet? Or you haven't?
Yeah.
She's in the shower right here, like waiting for you. Harry's like, Bob, shut up, puts him in the drawer, slams the drawer. Like, don't talk. I don't know.
And then I think he says that, and then Bob's like, he's like, oh, maybe you should put me in another room, like maybe the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's Bob.
I love this. It's kind of a somber, serious line. I think in like the second or third chapter.
Yeah.
But Murphy is over at Harry's place, and she's helping him clean up his warden's cloak, and she's washing it in the sink, and she says, "Look at this. The blood came out when it hit the water." And then Harry says, "It's like that kid never died." Cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like this moment where like there's just so much like it's gonna sound stupid because it's such a small line, but there's like so much emotion in this where like it's kind of like Harry trying to be a little bit of a smartass, but he just doesn't have the energy for it after this horrible thing that's happened.
Yeah.
And so it, instead of it coming out like this snarky remark, it kind of comes out like in this somber way, like, it's like that kid never died. Cool. Just like, and there's so much like feeling there. And so I've always really loved that line. We read the fucking phone rang right next to my ear. That one. And then Harry says this to Molly on a couple different occasions. And, you know, when she's kind of being like stubborn and stuff. And he says, "Mrs. Carpenter, is there any doubt in your mind, any at all, that I could damn well take you there, whether or not that's what you want to do?"
Yeah.
And it's just like this, like, just flex on like, yes, you do not know shit yet, Molly.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And it works. It like shuts her up.
Exactly.
Here, I got one too. So this is kind of before they go to Arctus Tor. They're in the church and whatnot, and Harry's up in the balcony, just kind of contemplating, thinking, and Father Forthill comes in and, you know, basically just like asks Harry, he's like, you know, do you need to talk to me? Like, can I be an ear for you to talk to or whatever? And Harry's like, man, you know, there are things that I just can't share with the priest. And he says, well, then share them with your bartender. And he pulls out a flask of, I think it was scotch.
Yeah.
And drinks, you know, takes a swig of scotch and passes it to Harry. And it was like the perfect way to like diffuse Harry's tension.
Oh yeah.
It's all he needed to like be able to just open up. And I was like, that's Father Forthill's a badass. Like,
dude, Father Forthill is so sick. And I think that, you know, this is kind of one of those moments too. There's a lot of turning points in this book. Yeah. And I think this is kind of a turning point for Harry and Father Forthill too, because after this book, Harry and Father Forthill talk about everything. Like they're like super open with each other after this book. And so, yeah, that's definitely a super, super cool moment because, you know, Forthill is basically saying like, look, I'm not who you think I am. Like I'm not like this stereotypical priest that you think I am. Like I'm a lot cooler than that. And, you know, I'm on your side, whether we believe in the same God or not. Like I'm on your side. And so I really love this moment with them.
Me too.
Ending with a funny quote here. So Molly or Harry brings Molly back to the Carpenter house at the beginning. And this is the first time that Michael and Charity are seeing Molly in a very long time. She's got all these like tattoos and piercings and hair and like pink and blue hair. And so Charity comes around the corner and she goes, "Look at you. You look like a savage." And then Harry says, my mouth went off on reflex. "Ah, yes, a savage of the chromatonsorial Cahokian goth tribe." Michael winced, and the look Charity gave me could have withered the life from small animals and turned potted flowers black.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I remember the first time I read that quote, I literally like laughed out loud.
Yep.
The of the chromatonsorial Cahokian goth tribe.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my
Harry's
God,
got the
that's
best
brilliant.
quips, man. He's got the
Yeah.
best like instant retorts, and yeah,
Yeah.
his comedic value is massive.
So I have a couple other things that I want to read when we get into kind of this next section here, but let's talk about kind of like I guess the meat of this whole conversation. Let's talk about some of our favorite moments, most emotional moments.
So I was going through the notes here, and we've already
Yeah,
a lot of
we've
these
talked about a bunch of them.
Yep. And so, and I would, and we've kind of already mentioned this, but a really incredible moment, as you've said before, is when Ebenezer and Harry reconcile, right? Like way towards the end. And I think the way that I think Harry offers to I don't know what kind of food it was. Was it like spaghetti
Yeah,
or something?
spaghetti.
Spaghetti. And
Yeah.
he's like, I know this great spaghetti place, hot waitresses and this and that. And you can tell when Ebenezer, he takes a breath and he's like, I would like that. It's like,
Yeah.
it was just this moment where you could tell that Ebenezer needed to hear that.
Yeah.
He needed it because I think he felt super bad and whatnot. And so that was super cool. And again, that'll all come into play later. And I think that their relationship is probably one of my more favored relationships out of the whole book. Just kind of their backstory, and where they came up from and the whole, scenario that kind of fired it off. And then of course,
Ebenezer taking him in and everything.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and teaching him just like he's doing for Molly and stuff. So yeah, that's one of my faves.
And speaking of that, let me see. I think I had something. So yeah, there's this really, really great. It's like the final paragraph in the book. And so they say, yeah, they've got this great bread that goes with it too. And it's right by the campus. So cute waitresses. Ebenezer says, sounds promising, makes me feel a mite hungry hearing about it. Absolutely, I said, let me get my shoes. If we hurry, we can get there before the evening rush. We looked at each other for a long moment, and my old teacher bowed his head to me. It conveyed a lot of things: apology, gratitude, happiness, forgiveness, affection, pride. You want me to drive us? He asked. I bowed my head in reply. I'd like that, sir.
Okay. Yeah. That was it.
It's such a great moment. I love that so much. And it's such a perfect way to end the book, because the book started like the very beginning of the book is, I mean, the kid gets his head chopped off, but then Ebenezer and Harry are outside, and Ebenezer is like inviting him to get some food. And Harry's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And Ebenezer is just like, okay. And so to end with Ebenezer and Harry reconciling is just such a perfect moment.
Yep.
So we see what's happened to Lloyd Slate ever since Summer Night. Dude, this is terrifying.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
So he's got he's been like tattooed and scarred all over his body. His teeth have been chipped and like tattooed and stuff. And what's Mab's game plan with him, where she's like kind of this cycle that she's putting him through?
Yeah, so I think the Lananchi kind of explained it, I think, when they were in Noctis Tor, and basically she's like, Mab is like torturing him with kindness, basically.
Yeah.
Like she would take him out of that thing and like care for him and, love on him and take care of him and whatnot. And then, he'd go to sleep and then he'd wake up hanging from that tree, blind and pain and all this over and over again. And she's like, and then I wish I had this quote down. She says along the lines of like, when he looks forward to being on the tree, that's when Mab knows that he is broken and she will cast him aside. So basically, like, this is just pure torture. She doesn't need anything out of it. She is just torturing him until he's useless, and then garbage out the door. And because you think of torture, like, like pain and agony and this and that, but imagine like being in so much pain and then like getting saved from it only to be in pain again. And then like the longing he must have to like feel that comfort again,
love,
would be torture. Like that would be torturous. So yeah, it's a
Yeah,
very, very
it's
interesting way to torture somebody.
yeah, dude. It's wild. And we know that he's like this he's
He's a
done
rapist. He's a
yeah, he's a
thief,
rapist.
murderer, all the, yeah.
And even Maeve says when they were at McAnally's,
Yep,
um
McAnally's, yeah.
she says, do you remember when he brought you before the court like naked to dance or whatever? And
Oh yeah,
so he's done all these really horrible things to Lilly,
yeah,
but somehow that chapter actually like made me feel bad for him. Like, even though he's this horrible person,
yeah,
I'm just like, dude, nobody should ever have to go through that.
yeah,
Um, and then he begs Harry to kill him. He's like,
yeah,
please, like, finally you're here. Just kill me. Just kill me.
yeah,
Just kill me. And Harry just leaves him, and it's like, oh my God, like, and I actually don't remember why Harry left him. Like, I remember being kind of surprised that Harry was like, oh yeah, I got to end this guy's suffering or whatever. Oh, and so also Leah is captive in
oh
Arctis
yeah,
Tor.
yep,
And so she's in pretty much a block of ice, right? And
yeah,
she's part of it melts away, and she's able to talk to
yep,
Harry. And it seems like she's got a little bit of a split personality disorder kind of thing
yeah,
going
yep,
on. Wonder what that's about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. You'll find out.
you'll find out. And yeah, so this is an interesting glimpse into kind of what is going on behind the scenes. And I remember reading Proven Guilty the first time and being like, what is going on here? Like, this is so confusing. Like, what
Yeah,
could any of this possibly be? And just what it ends up being is probably not what you would expect.
for sure.
But Leah being captive in Arctis Tor in that block of ice, there's a reason that she's bound there. There's a reason why she's being held in ice. And so that'll be fun to find out over the next
Yep.
few books. One of my absolute favorite scenes is when Molly wakes up for the first time after coming back from Arctis Tor, and Harry tells her like, hey, we need to talk.
Yep.
And he goes through the whole thing of like grounding out her magic and all that.
Yeah.
And then he tells her about the White Council and everything that needs to happen. And he basically says, like, you can run away if you want, and I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to go turn you in or anything. But they will hunt you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And
they will find you, and they will
yeah,
kill you.
They will find you. They will kill you. He's like, but if you go now, like, they may show clemency because you are turning yourself in, but also you have me. Like, I will go with you.
Yep.
And it's this back and forth of like, you just feel the tension there. And like, I don't know how to explain it. There's just like this huge weight of like, oh dude, like, in a lot of ways, I know how she feels because I've had to go to court for things before in a past life. And it's not fun, and sometimes it's really scary. And so I kind of feel for her in this scene, because it's like, dude, you can feel the desperation of her looking for any other solution than going before the council. And just kind of this ultimatum that Molly has, like, you either run for the rest of your life and hope that they don't find you, and not get trained. Like, you would keep going on with this proclivity to use black magic, or you could go through this ordeal. I'll be there with you, and I'll train you to use magic the right way. And so that whole scene is just so powerful.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, we get Molly's soul gaze.
Oh yeah.
What are these different versions of her that we see? Do you remember?
Yeah. So there's like a kind of a warlock, drug addicted Molly. possibly possessed. There's a Molly who is a mother with children. He says comfortably heavy or comfortably
Yeah.
bigger, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's a warden Molly. She's got this huge brand on her face, like
Yeah.
half of her face is scarred up.
Yeah.
There's a current Molly, confident. There's a Molly at a desk, like working 9 to 5 job or whatever. And then there's the one that scared him was a Molly that's dressed in all black, black hair, black collar, flat black eyes or whatever. And I think he says like it's the eyes that gave it away.
Yeah.
He's like, this is not Molly. This is a monster. Like this is
Right.
not a human being anymore. And that's what that's when I thought I was like that's like I have a feeling if she did not choose to go to council and chose to keep down that path and she managed to evade the White Council, like that's she would turn into like probably like the ultimate bad guy. Like she'd probably
Well,
be like, go ahead.
No, go ahead. She'd probably be like, what?
I was just say like super power, insanely powerful and probably obviously it didn't happen. I'm just thinking past it, but
dude, honestly on this reread was the first time that I noticed that last one.
Oh yeah.
Because I had in my head, I was like, oh yeah, there was like a warlock Molly, there was like a good Molly, there was like a mother Molly and all this stuff. But I forgot about this last one.
Yeah.
And what's so weird about it is he specifically mentions that it was something other than human.
Yeah.
And so like, I kind of see the first one, the warlock or drug addicted Molly, as being the one that is possibly, what she would end up as if she didn't go to the White Council. Dude, what the fuck is this thing where she's like a non-human version of Molly?
Yeah.
Like how, dude, I want to ask Jim Butcher that so much. Like, what is that? Like that? Because it doesn't sound like anything that we've heard of so far.
For sure.
He said it had like reptilian eyes and the eyes were like completely black. The only thing that we've kind of heard that matches that description to some extent is like a red court vampire.
Yeah.
So I guess that's possible. But I just caught that this time and I was like, dude, what is the non-human Molly? Like what events have to take place for that to happen?
For sure.
And so I really liked catching that this time around. We also get our maybe not our first glimpse, but we get like our first like solid glimpse into what someone else sees when they soul gaze Harry.
Yeah.
She later on tells him that she sees that he is lonely, he is kind, he is gentle, and he is hungry sexually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she says that no one's been with him for a very long time, and he's lonely, like he feels like this longing for like another person's touch and just another person's like comfort. And that was really sad because I think that that's so true to like who Harry's character is. Like he doesn't really go out of his way to find romantic relationships because he's so concentrated on saving Chicago and making sure that he's doing the right thing.
Yep.
And so it's kind of sad whenever we realize whenever we get a reminder that Harry is a very lonely person. Like he is desperately lonely a lot of the time.
Yep.
I have a quote. It's really, really good.
Okay.
So this is after they get Molly back from Arctis tour, and Thomas is standing around with Karen and Harry. It says, Thomas sat down on my other side, wincing as he touched the lump on his head. Harry, Thomas said, remind me why we keep hurling ourselves into this kind of insanity. I traded a smile with Murphy and said nothing. We all three of us watched as Charity, on the floor in front of the first row of seats, clutched her daughter hard against her. Molly leaned against her with a child's gratefulness, need, and love. She spoke very quietly, never opening her eyes. Mama. Charity said nothing, but she hugged her daughter even more tightly. Oh, Thomas said, right. Exactly, I said, right. I'm just like,
Yep.
oh my God, it's going to make me tear up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
That's good. That was well put together.
It's such a great moment because of course Thomas would be the person who's like, why do we do this? And there's just like this incredibly like beautiful scene
Yeah.
kind of
They're just
going
like,
and
look right over there. That's why we do
yeah,
it.
that's why we do it. And that's so true to like who Harry is and like kind of his MO for doing things. I just want to read this moment where Molly is telling Charity, like, why don't, like, how can you not trust
Oh, yeah.
Harry?
Okay. Yeah. I'm ready for this. This is really good.
Okay, here it is. So really, like, honestly, like I could read this whole chapter. Like there is so much in chapter 43, all this back and forth with Charity Carpenter, and Harry is having to kind of explain to her like why, like it's just such a huge moment for
Yeah.
all of these characters. And like there's a ton of growth in Molly, there's a ton of growth in Charity in this chapter. Chapter 43 is just the best. To remind everybody, they're arguing with Charity about whether or not Molly should go to the White Council, and Charity accuses Harry of wanting to bring Molly there for the sole purpose of getting in the good graces with the council. Yeah. And so all this arguing is going on. Molly finally speaks up and said, "Mama," Molly said quietly, breaking it, "please tell me what Harry has done in the past 2 days to make you think that he is selfish or cowardly. Was it when he turned to face the ogre so that we could escape? Was it when he traded away the obligations the summer lady owed him in order to attempt the rescue?" Charity was shocked, silent for a second. Then her face heated and she said, "Young lady, that isn't..." Molly went on smoothly, her voice quiet, calm, displaying neither anger nor disrespect, nor weakness. "Or perhaps it was when you were unconscious and no one could have stopped him from simply taking me to turn over to the council, and he instead stopped to give me a choice. You told me everything he's done since I was taken. Now he's offering to die for me, Mama. What more could you ask of him?" And so I just love, this is by far my favorite monologue from Molly.
Yes.
And you know, I wish I could do it the justice that James Marsters does.
Yeah.
But man, every time, this whole chapter, I'm usually just like crying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
especially during that monologue, because it's just such a reinforcement of who Harry is and how much he cares about these people, and you know how much he's willing to give up, including his own life, to protect the people that are important to him. And so, you know, I think that that's just such a great reinforcement of that. There's this other great line in that chapter where Father Forthill asked Charity, he was like, "What would Michael say to do?" And Charity says, "To have faith, to trust the wizard, that he is a good man."
Yeah.
And Forthill says, "I think so too."
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just like this culmination. Like we've seen Charity and Harry be at odds for every book before this one. Like they are just hating each other. And finally, Charity is realizing that Harry is a good man, and that, you know, just because he uses magic, and just because like he sometimes gets Michael into some tight situations, it doesn't mean that he's not a good man. And I think she sees what he's willing to do for Molly. And then at the very end of the book, there's this really great moment where I forget what she says, but she's basically, I think he drops Molly off for the last time, and Charity comes over and is like, "Thank you," and then just like gives him this big hug. She's never given him a hug before. It was just like this really, really awesome moment.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to mention about this, the thing I think is super interesting is Father Forthill brings up the parable of the 5 talents. We learn that Charity had magic at one point in her life. And so I thought this was such an interesting way to use the parable of the 5 talents.
Yeah.
If you don't know, let's see if I can even recite it. So basically the whole point of the story is that a king gives his servants like these coins and says, invest them properly. And some people bury them in the ground and don't use them at all. Other people squander them and use them improperly. And then other people take the coins that they were given and invest it in good. They make good investments and they get a return on their coin for more to give their king. And so, they're kind of going through this parable. And Harry realizes that Charity was the one who buried her talents.
Yeah.
Not to use it. She didn't squander her talent. But she definitely didn't use it for good, like Harry's trying to do and like Molly's trying to do. She's the one that buried her talents, and I just think it works so seamlessly into this scene. I really love that. That's probably a pretty good place to end for favorite moments. I don't think I have too much beyond that, right? Unless you can think of anything.
No, yeah. I think we covered all the stuff that I was excited to talk about.
For sure. We do get an ending with Harry pouring water over Molly when she tries to seduce him.
Yeah.
That was good. That was phenomenal.
Yeah. And he knew it was coming too. Like I missed this last, the last couple times I've read it, but there's Molly's like, can I freshen up? And Harry's like, all right, well, I guess it was inevitable. We better deal with this now. And at the past rereads, I didn't, I thought he was like, okay, she just has to clean up. Whatever. But he's like, he knew exactly what she was gonna do, and of course that is said. But yeah, that's a great scene too. Just fucking dumps water all over. She's like butt naked. Just nope, this is never gonna happen. Yeah.
He lays the law down, doesn't he?
Yeah. For sure.
He's like, we are not gonna have this is not gonna be a relationship of equals. Like I am in charge of you. Yeah. That was great. And then the whole way. He's driving her back to her parents' house, and he's like, you're gonna study with me every day, you're gonna go back to high school, you're gonna have homework, all this stuff. And she's just like, oh my god, like I can't I can't believe this.
Is this hell? I'm in hell.
Is this hell?
Yeah.
All right, so to talk about just a couple future book things that I thought were pretty interesting while I was reading this. Some small theories and whatnot. So there is some sort of connection between Merlin, like the OG Merlin, and Harry, because we see this get brought up a few times, and I think a lot of it is in future books. But so Harry has one of the swords, and the original Merlin was also a holder of the swords.
Yeah.
And so I think that's pretty interesting. There's a lot of just kind of similarities that went along with that when Michael and Harry were having that talk. And then Harry says, wow, you think I should find a big rock or something, stick the sword in and leave it on the White House lawn?
Yeah.
And then Michael actually mentions that the swords are passed down through royalty, like lineage of royalty. And he mentions that Amarachius is in fact Excalibur.
Yeah.
It's the only sword that hasn't been reworked in any way.
Same sword. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that I thought that was pretty cool when that got revealed.
Yep, I agree.
And then I guess we already talked about this, but again, who hit Harry's car, who fixed Little Chicago, who cast Hellfire and Fairy. These are all things from this book that I'm super, super interested to find out. What about you? What do you think? Who do you think fixed Little Chicago?
Man, I couldn't even begin to answer that. I have no clue. My first thought is Mab.
Yeah,
That's probably like where I would go to first.
sure.
And then I had some weird thought that like, and this I ruled this out quickly after, but I had a thought that like, I wonder if like maybe Lashiel like did some weird stuff and made him think, I don't know. That was just a thought that I had I kind of ruled it out afterwards because I was like, I don't think Harry would like, let that happen, or neither would Bob if he was in there. But yeah, I would say Mab, man. Mab's it. And for Hellfire and Fairy, like I don't know about that because Harry even mentions he's like the literal like agents of hell like are in on this or whatever, because like that's where Hellfire comes from, like you don't get that anywhere else. So and again, we still don't fucking know what happened there.
Yeah, it's got to be either Nicodemus's crew or
actual demon,
Tessa's,
or
who's his wife, Tessa?
Yeah, it's Tessa.
Crew.
Or Tessa or whatever. Yeah, Tessa.
Yeah. So it's got to be somebody in that group, unless there's somebody that has some sort of coin that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But dude, I think for the person that fixed Little Chicago, I'm wondering if it's Harry from the future.
See, this is where you lose me. Because like it's hard for me to like, and like I get it, like the gatekeeper kind of time travel stuff, but like time traveling is like against the freaking laws,
So like Jim Butcher has come out and said though that by the end of the series, Harry will have broken every single law of magic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
To some extent, yeah. To some extent, Harry's gonna break every single law of magic.
Okay, well then it's not so far off. Then it could be true. And that now that you said that maybe that does make sense, because maybe there was a reality where Harry got fucking blown up and everybody died. Molly died, ruined the whole place. And yeah, wow, that's interesting.
Right.
That's very interesting.
I think that's like my biggest question. Well, my biggest question in the series is probably who is Cal and Komori. But
my biggest question is like the gatekeeper. That's it.
Oh yeah. Dude, the gatekeeper is so mysterious, and he just like he shows up, and Bob even they had a really good conversation about how you can operate in time, like how you can
without actually time traveling. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then who hit Harry's car?
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah, and why for sure.
Unless in an alternate reality, something else was going to happen if Harry hadn't gotten hit, right? Like if something else at that moment was going to go down if he didn't get hit. And so then maybe Harry from the future or somebody from the future came back and like hit his car just to get him on a certain trail or something. I think this book has a lot of weird things like that. Like a lot of things where it's like, dude, there's something odd going on.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of them are going to get answered in Mirror Mirror. Not the next book that's coming out, but the one after that.
Nice.
I fucking love this book.
Yeah.
It's so phenomenal. It'll probably always be my number one favorite until the very last book comes out, and then that'll be my favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, this one just has so much nostalgia for me that I like reading this book feels like going home every time I read it. All righty. Well, thank you for staying up late after work to record this episode with me.
Absolutely.
And guys, we're gonna wrap it up there. And thank you so much for hanging out with us while we discussed Proven Guilty. If you enjoyed this content, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons, and make sure you click on that little bell icon so that you can get notified each time we put up a new video. You can also follow us on Twitter @FilesFantasy to join in on our little community over there. And feel free to reach out if there's anything you'd like to see discussed on the Fantasy Files, whether it's a book, TV show, or other topic relating to fantasy or sci-fi. We appreciate each and every one of you who watches our content and interacts with us. We'll see you on the next episode. And until next time, remember to be vague yet unhelpful. What do you think? Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but I'm here to support.
Yeah.
And so is Stevie. So, okay. Sorry, Stevie. Out of the spotlight.